Well, good evening, pipe smokers of the YouTube community. This is David from the Mythical History Channel. Been a while since my last video. As I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I ended up having a tooth problem, a toothache. That turned into an adventure with the dentist to have a crown put on my top molar. I've actually never had a crown. I've really never had any interaction with dentists since I was about 10 years old. I've always been very fortunate with my teeth, and for the life of me, I'm not sure. I have the crown; it's all in there. It's not a bad experience at all. But no matter how many times I show my wife that I have a crown, she refuses to call me King David. But anyways, it is a hot week here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. You may not know that by the flannel and the t-shirt that I have on, but here in the basement where the library is kept, it seems like the air just falls down here, and it's 40 to 50 degrees. Upstairs it's 68, but down here, you're lucky to get up to 60 degrees. I need to probably check that out as to why the air is not circulating the way it should be. But if you go outside, it is hot. I think a lot of the Midwest is experiencing that. But I am back and ready to do some videos. Didn't really want to smoke. I figured, if you're having some dental issues, maybe smoking a pipe is not the best thing for you. So kind of set that aside. I am smoking today my Peterson. Get that to focus. My Peterson bent, rusticated. And I forget what actual name is, but I know it's by Peterson. But I'm smoking some black vanilla Cavendish. I usually purchase this from Indian tobacco traders who's here in Grand Rapids. But I called them a couple days ago and they said, we actually can't get any. So I started looking around, and what they were actually selling me was McBaron's black vanilla Cavendish. And I went on to a couple places and I noticed that all of those are sold out. So I'm not sure if you can't get any more or what, but I'm fortunate. I had just bought maybe 4 months ago a pound of the stuff, so it's kept well, and I at least have a little bit to get me a couple weeks or months down the road. Last time I was on, I shared with you a story about Daniel and a man named Belshazzar. Today, I want to share with you another story, and this is from the book of Ezekiel. Now, the book of Ezekiel was written sometime around the beginning of the 6th century BC. And we find an interesting reference, and there's a lot of interesting things in this book, but there's a reference there to the city of Tyre. Now, Tyre was a prosperous nation. It was prosperous. It was of one of the Phoenician cities. This is where the Philistines were from, and it dates back to about 2700 BC. The modern city of Tyre and its sister city of Sidon, which you read about not only in the Old Testament, but even in the New Testament, are located about 20 miles apart from each other on the Mediterranean Sea. Now, during Solomon's time, which is around 950 or so BC, Israel and Tyre had a really good relationship. In fact, it was King Haran, I believe it was, that Solomon went to and asked for cedar timbers to be able to build the first temple. Things went well, but the relationship soured as things changed between the two nations, to the point where Tyre actually was selling Israelites into slavery. Now, it's at that time that Ezekiel comes on the scene, and he pronounces a rather interesting prophecy against this particular city. He said, I'm going to wipe you from the land. This is the Lord speaking through Ezekiel. I'm going to cast you into the sea, and where you were, people are going to throw fishing nets out to dry, or they will stretch out fishing nets, literally. Now, if you read that, you may think, well, that seems to be what biblical scholars call hyperbole. I assume that they can't use the easier word of exaggeration, so they have to use the fancy word hyperbole, but it means exaggeration. So when Ezekiel says, I'm going to tear you down, I'm going to scrape you off the earth, I'm going to throw you into the sea, and I'm going to make where you are now desolate to the point of where people will simply stretch their fishing nets out. Some would say it's just a fancy way of Ezekiel saying, God's going to destroy you. But what he says actually came true. Around 586, you have the king of Babylon, who is called Nebuchadnezzar. He plays a lot of roles in the book of Daniel. But he comes across, he's about to attack Jerusalem and destroy Jerusalem and the temple and bring all of southern Jerusalem into captivity. But before he gets there, he comes to the city of Tyre, and he utterly destroys the city. Now, what's unique about the city is that the city was located really in two different geographical regions. There was the city of Tyre on the mainland, and then about a half a mile out, there was an island, and that was called the island Tyre. Well, Nebuchadnezzar didn't have a navy to speak of. Tyre knew that. So the people that could made their way out to the island through the boats, and Phoenicians were known for their boats. And Nebuchadnezzar did, as Ezekiel said, he destroyed the city, knocked the buildings down, destroyed the city. And the mainland was simply a collection of rubble. Now, some would say, well, that probably is exactly what Ezekiel's talking about. The city of Tyre was destroyed. The problem with that is that that's not exactly what Ezekiel said would happen. He said, I'll scrape you clean, I'll destroy you, yes, but I will scrape you off the earth and I'll throw you into the sea. And Nebuchadnezzar did destroy Tyre, but didn't destroy all of Tyre. And the promise that Ezekiel had made was that all of Tyre would be destroyed. The unique aspects of Ezekiel's prophecy comes almost 250 years later. In 356 BC, after Nebuchadnezzar had come across, the king of Babylon, the Medo-Persians had risen to power, and then you come another power structure of Greece, and that was Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was only about 20 years of age when he succeeded his father as king of Macedonia. He began a military conquest. He was amazing. Even as a 20-year-old, he was amazing in his ability to do campaigns and war. So as he's going through the Middle East area, he comes to the city of Tyre, the mainland. Of course, at that time, there was nothing left. It was just rubble, and there was the island that was out there, and they were safe. They knew that Alexander didn't have a naval, supply either. They were kind of like Nebuchadnezzar. They had heard the stories. It had been passed down for the last 200 years what Nebuchadnezzar had done. And Alexander requested he could go out to the island and offer an offering to the gods that they worshipped. Well, the Tyrrhenians, the people that sounds like something from Game of Thrones, but the people that lived on the island said, no, you're not coming out here. We don't want you on our island. We know you can't get to us, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, Alexander was not the kind of person that you would just say no to. He's a person that would make things happen. And he showed early in his campaign here just how much tenacity he really had. He ordered his army to take the rubble that was on the mainland of Tyre, the city that had been destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. He said, I want you to take all that rubble. I want you to literally throw it in the sea, and I want you to build me a causeway all the way out to the island, a half a mile out. Over the next several months, that's exactly what his army did. He built a causeway by scraping the city of Tyre on the mainland off the map, literally throwing it into the sea, making a causeway, and then he conquered and destroyed the island city of Tyre. Exactly as Ezekiel had promised. It's interesting that when you read some of the prophecies in the Old Testament, sometimes they have a dual fulfillment. Some people looked and said, it's almost like you're looking at an event, but it's on two different hills and you don't see the valley between it. So to the person who's giving the message, they assume that the destruction of Tyre and the scraping of the city, the throwing into the sea, and making it bare to where people simply stretch their nets, that all happened at the same time. But if you go back to history, you find out that it was two different events. And it was exactly as Ezekiel had promised. He said, this is what the Lord is going to do. And sure enough, he did it. Kind of like with Belshazzar, I find that when you dig into the history behind some of these texts, you find that they were remarkably and in interesting ways fulfilled to a T. Well, there's a lot more where that came from. Maybe we'll share some more in the future. But I just wanted to come on real quick and let you know that I'm not gone from this world. I am still here. I have all my teeth except one, and one of them are brand new. My wife should call me King David because my name is David and I have a crown. But that only makes her laugh when I ask her to do that. So I think I want to stop asking her about it. Anyways, I hope things are well with you. I hope temperatures are not too hot and sticky and muggy. But till next time, hope your pipe stays lit. I got to find somewhat of a call sign whenever I get off. I've been watching a lot of your videos, and everyone has something they say when they exit, and I'm just not clever enough to do that yet. So anyways, I'll just say blessings to you and your family, and we'll talk to you next time.